Welcome to another episode of Project Management for Small Business. I'm your host, Anthony Pavelich. Today I'm happy to have with me Tyler Hakes. He is the founder and strategy director of Optimist, which is a full-service content marketing agency. The Optimist team is 100% remote and distributed, with freelancers working across more than a dozen clients. Over the last 3 years, he's worked with the team to tackle challenges and iterate on agile project management processes that allow the teams to retain autonomy while keeping the entire team in sync. So let's get started. Hi, Tyler. Thank you for joining me today.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good. So I want to go ahead and just start out by getting some background about your company, Optimist, and what exactly it is and what you're doing with it.
Yeah, so Optimist is a content marketing agency. Basically the way it works is pretty simple. Companies come to us, they hire us to kind of run their content marketing programs. So we do everything from research and strategy to creating content. So we do writing and design and sourcing photography and kind of all the stuff we need to do. And then we also manage content promotion. So we're taking the content that we create, we're publishing on their site, and then we're promoting it to through different channels, whether that's LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook or email newsletters or kind of whatever channels are a fit for that particular client. And so we have kind of a lot of different moving pieces. We've been around for about 2 years now, so we've grown and we have around 12 clients that we manage or that we work with, and we're kind of managing an ongoing editorial calendar for each of those clients, and so publishing anywhere between probably 3 and 10 different articles or pieces per month. So definitely a lot going on across the team.
How did you get started in doing the marketing?
It's been sort of an interesting journey. I started my career as a journalist, or I should say I went to school to be a journalist, and started with writing and kind of fell into marketing out of school as content marketing was kind of becoming a popular thing, and so it just kind of became my natural sort of career trajectory. And I spent most of my career working for other consulting firms and agencies and doing copywriting and content creation and all kinds of stuff like that. And then I worked as a freelancer for a little while with a number of clients, and I realized that there was just a big need for companies that wanted to kind of do content marketing the right way, but they didn't necessarily have all the tools and strategies to do it. And so they really needed kind of a full service team to come in and really run the whole show and help them generate, not just create content and publish it, but also do all of the promotion and the strategy that it takes to kind of get the results out of that content marketing. So growing traffic, growing leads, that kind of thing.
And you have a pretty big team now. So are they all freelancers? Do you have any employees, or is it all by contract?
Yeah, so we have a very interesting kind of hybrid model. So, I think most agencies kind of have, sort of one of two models. They're either, they've got a full-time team and an office and all that good stuff, or, it's a really small operation and then they kind of outsource a bunch of stuff. And so we're sort of somewhere in the middle. And so the way that we work is that we have a team. I think we're going on 20 now, freelancers. And so basically everyone on our team is a full-time professional freelancer. So they don't, moonlight. They're freelancing full-time, and they work with us as sort of a core team. And so a lot of the folks on our team, they work across multiple clients, or they work, on multiple projects over time, that kind of thing. So we do work with freelancers, but we don't kind of outsource it in the traditional way that you might think of working with freelancers.
So they're pretty much kind of like full-time freelancers for you.
Yeah. Most of them have some work outside, but I think, probably the majority of the folks on our team get maybe 50% of their work from us. And it's a nice benefit for them because we've got ongoing work for the most part. So they can kind of fill a good chunk of their time with work from us, and then kind of fill in the blanks with other work outside of Optimist. So it kind of works out for both sides.
Yeah, I noticed looking at your website that you have one writer that's here actually close to me in Toronto, I live in Mississauga, which is right outside of Toronto, Canada, or Ontario. So,
Oh, cool. Yeah, Emily.
yeah. So you do have quite a dispersed team. How do you manage that? Because I know in today's world, one of the things that happens with a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of companies, especially with freelancers, is that there's a lot of virtual teams, and you have to figure out across. One of my clients actually even has freelancers that are like in the Philippines. So, how do you manage the cross timeline or manage your timelines with the different time zones and everything?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge sometimes, and honestly, it's an evolving process for us where we're kind of constantly figuring out the kind of the right combination of meetings and internal sort of resources and artifacts and things like that to relay information. But the most sort of basic thing that we try to do is basically we try to give people as much context as possible on the work that they're doing, so that when they are working, whether it's 5 o'clock their time or 8 o'clock their time or whatever kind of time they want to work, they have sort of all the information that they need. So my job, I think, as kind of the leader of the team and as sort of a project manager in a lot of ways, is to really make sure that as we go through the process of creating content, what we're doing is we're sort of documenting the whole thing. So we're including the writers in the strategy, so that when it gets to the point where they're writing the content, they understand not just a basic direction of what they're creating, but they also have broader context of why we're creating that piece, what it's doing for the company as part of the strategy, and kind of what we're hoping to accomplish with it. And so I think, like, for us working asynchronously, that's just a really, really important component, because I'm not going to be online all the time to answer questions or to edit their work and that kind of thing. And so we really need to be able to hand off sort of as much context as possible and let people kind of do their own thing. And so, big picture, I think that's a really big part of our model, is just really thinking about how do we incorporate people into the broader work and give them the context they need to really execute on their own.
So you led me into a good question, because you said, as semi-project manager, as doing the project management, how do you manage the projects? What kind of tools do you use? How do you keep everybody on track?
So our main project management tool that we use right now is Asana. Okay. And so, the way it's set up for us is pretty straightforward. Basically, we create separate projects for each of our clients, and then within each project we have a list of basically all of the articles that we're creating, or all the individual projects. So it could be an article or infographic or whatever. And then within each of those, there's a whole bunch of subtasks. So everything from creating the brief to doing the writing, creating the design, and then doing the promotion, and all that good stuff. So we kind of have a few different layers of project management that are happening. But at the high level, we operate on kind of a Kanban kind of card type of a workflow, where we're just kind of managing each piece kind of as it goes through the process, and kind of keeping it updated that way. And then, the only other tool, honestly, that we really use to coordinate on work. So first of all, most of the work happens in Google Docs or Google Drive. And so we're creating there and sort of collaborating through comments and that kind of thing. And then we're sort of housing each of the files and sort of all of the assets for each project in Google Drive, and then it's sort of backed up on Asana and attached to the cards there. And then really the only other thing that we do to coordinate is through Slack. So we use Slack as kind of an informal way to coordinate or say, hey, I need help with this thing, or just a heads up, this thing's come down the pike and it's going to be ready for you tomorrow, or whatever, that kind of stuff. But it's pretty light. It's pretty lean, I think, overall.
Is that how you've done it since the beginning, or did you try something else in the beginning?
So really early on when we started out, we actually started with Trello, and that's kind of why we adopted sort of the Kanban view in Asana, was that we were used to sort of the Trello workflow of the cards, and that lasted for about 2 or 3 months working in Trello until we got to maybe about 3 clients, and we realized that we just needed sort of a more sophisticated system for managing. Again, we've just got multiple projects across multiple clients, and each project has tasks and subtasks and a lot of sort of it's maybe not as complex as some other projects, but for us it was more complex than what we could really manage effectively in a tool as simple as Trello. So that was kind of our first iteration. And then we moved into Asana after we reached about 2 or 3 clients and kind of hit the top end of what we could manage with Trello. And so now we've been using Asana for almost 2 years now, and it's gone pretty well. But I will say, there are some limitations of Asana as well that we have identified, and some workflow things that we're looking to address, either by moving to a new tool or possibly adding another tool into the mix, which is an interesting challenge because I like to keep things fairly lean. I don't want to use too many tools. I want to keep our tool set pretty limited so that there's not a lot of confusion or different places where things can be hiding and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm working with a client right now that they're using Axosoft, and we're trying to switch, and we've done demos. We're trying to find something that fits everything, and you're never going to find something that fits everything. But we've gone through Acelo, we've gone through Zoho. We've looked at lots of different ones trying to find the perfect workflow, and it's very difficult to find something that will do everything for you.
Yeah, that's definitely what we found. It's in almost every solution that we've looked at, there are trade-offs. You're looking, you might get a slightly better or more intuitive interface, but you trade that off with, you get less powerful integrations or whatever it is. There's sort of slight variations, and I think it's funny. I joke a lot because I feel like I think people who start an agency. I think those are the people that tend to create project management tools, because every agency kind of has their own unique workflow that they develop over time, and they realize that no tool is going to work exactly how they work, and so then they end up just making their own tool and then trying to sell it to other agencies.
Exactly. And then hope that somebody else uses the same workflow as they do.
Yeah.
So they can make some money. Yeah, I mean, some of these programs, I swear, they do need people out there to work with clients to, if they're going to go further with their tools, work with customers, find out what the tool flows are, and then implement there. Because there are things like the one client that I work with, it's web design, so a lot of moving pieces, a lot of dependencies, but waterfall isn't necessarily the right way, and trying to get the agile or the board to work the right way in some of these software programs is kind of crazy. And then get something that will manage, the customer, have the CRM and the budget in it and everything else without trying to use 10 different programs. It's challenging.
Yeah, that's, honestly, that's another one of the things that we're kind of looking for in sort of our next evolution in our process is how do we. Yeah, I think right now there's some disconnect between, even as sort of lean as our stack is, there's some disconnect between things that live in Google Drive and are like sort of client or even, agency-wide resources, things like, content playbooks or persona information or whatever kind of context that we need for stuff that we're creating. That stuff all lives on Drive, but sometimes it doesn't always get inserted into the workflow in the product management tool. And so one of the things that, I'd really like to do and figure out from our side is kind of how do we, how do we have a more of like a dashboard view for each client that says, hey, here's all the resources you're going to need when you're creating content for this client. Because that's something that we, I think it's going to become more of a challenge for us as we continue to scale. Our company is that we manage more clients. There's more, we're talking to more audiences. We're creating more content for each client. And so as we continue to grow the scale of work that we're doing, there's just more context that can be lost if we don't have that documented and presented in a really like intuitive way for everyone on the team.
Have you ever looked at Atlassian, like Jira and stuff like that?
I haven't spent a ton of time on it, honestly.
I've used it in the past, and I'm by no means promoting it. I know they have a lot of integrations with like Confluence and stuff that you can actually upload content to and everything. So just the way with what you're trying, it sound like you're trying to do, having documents tied to customers and stuff like that. It may be a good something to look at.
Interesting.
Just to see and look at all the add-ins, because the actual base product doesn't offer everything. It doesn't offer a robust budget tool either, but it's got lots of add-ins. It has a lot of add-ins that you can add to it. Where outside companies are building add-ons to it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's actually one of the big benefits, obviously, I think, of staying with a tool like that, is that if you kind of live in that ecosystem, or you work with a tool that has kind of an existing ecosystem, then you can plug it into a lot of other tools, which is a nice thing for us too, because we do use, again, our tool stack's pretty narrow, but we use Slack, we use Drive, we use some of this other stuff. And so having that kind of plug and play integration is definitely a big benefit for us too.
So what do you guys want to do? What do you want to do next? Where do you think you're going to go next with Optimist?
Well, right now we're looking to kind of continue to grow. Like I said, so right now I think we're working with around a dozen clients on kind of an ongoing basis, and so we're looking to kind of get to the next level. And that's honestly that's one of the things where I think as you grow an agency, you reach different levels, and at each level you kind of face new challenges. Right. So there's sort of the things that were hard in the beginning were getting clients and finding the initial members for our team and kind of figuring out all the basics of the workflow and that kind of stuff. And now that we're getting larger, we have a lot of the sort of the basics figured out, and we've got kind of a system that works, but there's still other pain points and other challenges. And so that's honestly one of the things that we're seeing, is that the project management process generally works, but there are areas for improvement around how do we kind of keep everyone on the same page at all times throughout the process as we grow from 12 to 15 to 20 different clients, and we've got all these different resources. And the other challenge that we run into is that our team will change as well. So we may have a writer that comes on, and then maybe they leave, or they can't take on the work anymore, and we need to bring in another writer. And so we need to have sort of a place where those artifacts type of resources can live for each of those clients, that they have that context to come in and say, okay, I understand what's been done with this client and what direction we're going and what I need to create. Because that's another challenge for us, is that we're pretty flat as an organization. And so we don't have like a dedicated project management role. And so we really rely on the tools and sort of the workflow to manage a lot of the day-to-day when it comes to project management stuff.
One of my clients, we just lost a programmer, and that's one of the things is the issues. Great person, but now we've got to find somebody else, and then it puts you behind, and you've got to make sure that everything's available and ready. So when the next person comes on, they can jump right in. Otherwise, even further behind for any customer or client.
Yeah, exactly. And especially when you're in the middle of a project, or you're working kind of an ongoing engagement, you don't always have time to say, okay, hey, let's hit pause on this for 2 months while we bring someone up to speed on everything that's happened over the last 2 years. And so you just have to have a system that surfaces that information in a way that's like easy and intuitive and sort of obvious. I always joke about this, but I think it's really true, is that like a lot of times if it's not like right in front of me, I forget that it exists. And so we create a lot of like really great documentation about like our clients and bringing them on and stuff, and then we throw it in Drive, and sometimes that thing just sits there and it collects dust. And so I think one of our challenges as we move forward is how do we take those things that we've spent time and money creating and make them more accessible, make them kind of put them right in front of the people who are doing the work, so that it's part of the process and kind of baked into the creative.
Let me ask you, if for anybody else who's trying to do what you did and start Optimist, and after spending a lot of time working for others, what piece of advice would you give to them? What would be a piece of advice that has helped you maybe keep focused and do what you wanted to do?
A lot of lessons learned. I would say, I would say, I think the thing that probably set us up for the most success early on, and has sort of continued to stay true, is sort of figuring out the most basic parts of the business model. So, the first thing that I did when we were starting Optimist was I really sat down and I kind of worked through the math, and I did the numbers on, okay, if we're going to price our services at this price, then how do we work backwards, and how much can we pay people, and how do we kind of structure the whole process, and how much time can we spend on these, and really sort of worked out the sort of skeleton for what the actual business model would be from a revenue standpoint. And that part of the business has basically held true. Through, as we've grown from 0 to a dozen clients, and from one person to almost 20 folks on the team now, that kind of model and that original math has really been kind of the stable point that's made everything work. All of the operation stuff has mostly changed, right? Because, as I said, you get things going, and what works when you're managing 1 or 2 clients might be Trello, but as soon as you hit 3 clients, it's a mess, and now you got to put out the fire, and you got to figure out how to pivot quickly. So I think, spend your time on the sort of underlying skeleton of the business and kind of how the moving parts come together. And then after that, you kind of layer on the facade, which is like the day-to-day operations part, because I think that's going to change and evolve as you grow. Whereas the underlying part will be static. Another thing that I'm a big believer in this, and it's really sort of kind of one of the founding parts of Optimist, is that I think that if you give people context and ownership over the work they're doing, that will enable them to do the best possible work that they can. And so I think one of the challenges that we tried to sort of avoid as an agency is that a lot of times you create sort of these hierarchies and these silos of creative work where you say, here you're a writer, you do the writing, and here you're a designer, you do the design, and don't talk to each other, and don't talk to the strategy people, and don't talk to the client, just do the work. Mm-hmm. And I think the problem there is that if you don't give people the context and the buy-in with the work that they're doing, then they can't create the best product, right? And so I have sort of an ongoing mantra that I tell our team, which is that we're all strategists. We're all involved in the strategy, and what I'm hoping to do is create a system and a process where I can say, hey, here's the thing that we want to accomplish. You be an expert and tell me how we can do it the best way. And that's something that I really believe in. And I think our whole system of project management is built on that sort of context driven work, where I want to give you all of the necessary context, the goal, etc. And I want to trust you as an expert, whether you're a writer or a designer or whatever, to figure out the best possible outcome for that goal. And so, I just think that's really important. And I think as an agency owner, if I were to do it over again, that's something that I would definitely do again, or even strengthen and build into our process even more, because I think where we, when we fail on projects is when we try to manage the output from sort of a top-down perspective, rather than managing the process, you try to manage the output. And I think that's a problem and a challenge for creative work, at least. So
I agree. I think too many people actually don't give enough ownership or give the autonomy to their workers to be able to be creative and do their job and try to direct their creativity. And especially in a creative world, that doesn't work. If you're trying to tell somebody how to be creative when they're creative, it's counterproductive. I mean, what about one good resource that you like? Was there a book or somebody that inspired you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say Jason Fried and the 37 Signals guys. I'm a big fan of kind of their ethos of work. Basically their kind of whole whole shtick is, I think his latest book was like Work Doesn't Have to Be Crazy or something like that. And it was just basically about how you build systems that sort of set the tone for your culture, right? And a big part of that is project management, right? It's if you put everyone under the gun on the deadline, or you don't kind of manage the workflow properly, then that creates a culture of chaos and everyone feeling like they have to run from fire to fire. And so I think definitely check out. I think their website's just 37signals.com. They've got a great blog, and they talk a lot about sort of work culture and sort of how you manage creative people, right? Because again, like ultimately, I think my role and the role of anyone who's starting a business or an agency like this, the role is to create the process, right? Manage the process, give people the framework for how to get things done, and then as we just talked about, give them the autonomy to be experts. Otherwise, why hire other people, right?
Yeah, exactly. So if people want to find you or get a hold of you, what's the best way?
Our website is definitely where you can find me and some of our stuff. We actually publish a decent amount of content about kind of behind the scenes and operations at our firm and kind of ways that we're evolving and learning. And you can find that at optimist.com. And you can also email me directly at the letter T like Tyler, at yesoptimist.com.
Awesome. Any last piece of advice or anything that you'd like to leave the listeners with?
I think
right?
I think you nailed it, Anthony. I think the key, again, in my opinion, and this goes to project management and all kinds of work, is autonomy, right? Giving people autonomy and giving people power over the work that they're doing, and trusting them to do good work, right? Hire good people and trust them to do great work. I think that's important.
If you don't trust the people you're hiring, why are you hiring them?
Totally. Yeah. And it doesn't take long for that to infiltrate the culture too. So I think, people feel that for sure.
They do. Well, I appreciate it, Tyler. It's been great. And I hope that we will see more from you guys.
Hey, thanks so much. It was great chatting with you, and I appreciate you having me on.
No problem. Thanks. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Project Management for Small Business. If you want to be on the podcast, or if you have a question you'd like answered on the podcast, please go ahead and get in touch at pmforsb@pavproconsulting.com. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and I'd love for you to leave a review if you like what you hear. And I'm very happy and proud to be one of FeedSpot's top 15 project management audio podcasts. Check out the link that's listed in this episode. And until next time, thanks for listening.